Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of NC-17. Today we have a few guests with us. So right now we have Will. How you doing, Will?
Good. How are you?
All right, all right. Abby from Motor City Nerds will be joining us, and we may have someone else pop in. Never know. Today we will be covering 28 days and 28 weeks later in preparation for 28 years later. So I'll let Will go first. What made you like these movies? What was your takeaways and your not takeaways?
Um, I'll definitely say that I think it revolutionized the zombie genre or zombie infected, whatever you want to call it. Um, I just love movies about and books about post-apocalyptic scenarios, specifically surrounding zombies, infected diseases, pandemics, whatever it is. And I really love their take on like this disease or zombies or something along those lines. I love the way that 28 Days Later went. Didn't really care for 28 Weeks Later, but it was still a good movie. It's still a good one. I don't view 28 Weeks Later as like a proper sequel.
Yeah, I think 28 weeks later is more of a. I think that would have been better as a standalone movie.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Uh, so what was your favorite thing of 28 days later?
Just overall throughout the entire movie,
Yeah, just your favorite scene.
my favorite scene. I really like the beginning of the movie when Jim initially wakes up and is leaving the hospital. Once he walks into the church and he walks in, and the first thing it says on there is the end is really fucking nigh. And he walks in and he sees all the people in the pews all over the place, and then the priest opens up the door and starts coming after him. He hits the priest with his bag of cans that he got from the hospital, and then he runs out. While he's running out, Mark and Selena, the two people that end up saving his life, are throwing Molotov cocktails at the zombies that are chasing them, which I think has a little bit of a different meaning because Britain in and of itself has been passes like major legislation against like against guns and gun ownership. So it's cool to see them still kind of stick with that theme and had them having to improvise to create weapons to be able to protect themselves. But I think when he initially wakes up and is running through the gas station or the petrol station and then into them, I think that's probably one of the things that really got me hooked instantly.
Oh yeah. Uh, I agree. That was a very good scene. My favorite scene was when the dad was looking up and the blood dripped into his eye.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's good too. It shows because what that shows though is how easy that disease was communicable between people. So it's not the classic, hey, you get bit, you're infected. It's anything. Saliva, blood, sweat, tears, any bodily fluid goes into any orifice on your body, you're instantly infected.
Oh yeah. Uh, let's talk about the cinematography in this movie. I mean, like the tunnel scene was filmed very well. I do think that with a lot of the way that the cameras was filmed, and we touched about this earlier, I think that also kind of brought forward a new way of filming, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it was a mix between like found footage and actual film because they filmed the initial shooting on like it almost felt like I was watching an infected zombie version of the Blair Witch Project because it felt like found footage film
Uh,
because the quality was so low, and it's like I've seen so many reviews online where people are like, why is this quality so bad? What's the point of me getting this in Blu-ray because it's so terrible? But it's no, it was intended to be shot like that.
oh yeah. Yeah. Hello, Abby. How you doing? If you can hear us, you're yeah. Oh, your mic is muted. Can't hear you.
Are we working?
Okay, there we go.
I'm so sorry. Did I cut you guys off?
No.
No, we're talking about 28 days later and the way it was filmed and stuff like that. Abby, this is Will. Will, this is Abby.
Hi, Will.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Okay, let me ask you guys this. Okay, where does 28 Days Later fall for you guys on the zombie scale?
Well, I'm gonna let Will answer that one first.
Um, well, I don't know
For
if I would
you.
necessarily I don't know if I would necessarily consider it a zombie movie, but as far as like an overall like planetary extinction event, like a rating of like what 1 through 10, like where it falls against other movies, I mean, I think it's a 10. I mean, I think it's amazing. I
It's
loved it.
top tier. No, it's top tier. It's
Oh, I
funny
loved
you
it. I
say
loved
that.
it.
I'm sorry, Will. It's funny that you say that though, because I was gonna say, from the horror people themselves, do you consider this a zombie movie?
No. No,
But
I
I like,
think
but you answered that, so I
yeah.
like that. But no, 28 Days Later is probably in my top five favorite like horror movies that I wouldn't immediately think to put up there. But I'm like, no, this is a top tier movie.
Yep.
Uh,
100%.
it's in my Hall of Fame, so
Well, especially when you know, like Danny Boyle only had like $8 million to make it and was like, please don't come down the street. We got to get this shot. Like, that's miraculous.
Yeah, I've read a bunch of articles about how they filmed that opening scene when Jim woke up from the hospital and how they would like block it all off and they had to like they only had like they had limited time to film these scenes. So the end result was incredible.
And in London,
Yep.
it
Yep.
wasn't like a
Yep.
random small city.
Yep.
It was London to be like, we got to make it work. So I give it, I love 28 Days Later. I think it's scary. I think the scariest part, this was the first movie that like as a young little girl, I went, this is scary because you get to the end and you're like, oh, we're safe. No, you're not. And now you're a commodity. And that's even scarier. And I would have been rather dealing with zombies in that tunnel.
uh, the let's talk about the ending real quick. The way that to me it was more along the lines of they turned it more against the human versus human aspect because the military was just doing what they were doing, and yeah, it's kind of like the zombies took a back step until it was time for Jim to do his rampage.
I'm not gonna lie, I think it's scary, but I really love the rage itself. Just that it's not considered like a zombie thing, and they're just like, no, we're fast, we're scary. And that one at the end when he turns it loose, that is some effects wearing actor perfection that guy is doing. He is going hard in the paint, and it's scary.
Uh, well, what would you say would be like the most terrifying moment of the movie?
Oh
Uh
God.
most terror like legitimate like scene or just like a concept because I have two different ones.
Tell us both.
Okay, so the concept is that even though you're dealing with a worldwide epidemic, infection, plague, you cannot rely on the other living people to keep you safe. And I think that's really well illustrated when they get to the military compound, when they realize that, oh, women are just being viewed as essentially, like sex slaves, right? And the most terrifying scene that I think I saw is just anytime anybody was infected, when the dad got infected, when the initial girl in the opening scene from the animal rights group got infected, how quickly that took over and their entire body changed.
Oh yeah, Abby, what would be your terrifying moments?
Think that like for me, like I said, I think the scariest part as a concept is like you said, nobody's there to help you, nobody's there to save you. It's all for nothing, kind of. But also with that line when she gives her all those pills and she says, "What are you doing? Killing me?" And she goes, "No, I'm making you not care." Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But scariest, like I'm trying to remember, okay, and I never like being in the dark, so that tunnel's always scary to me. But when he's that guy at the end, when he's puking up blood, that is all just gnarly. And he's right though, it's how quick we're changing and how fast that's happening. And I will say this, there are some really heartstring pulling scenes. I was thinking sad for a minute when the dad gets the blood in his eye, when Jim finds his parents. Those are rough.
Oh yeah. Uh, I want to say probably the most terrifying moment, and I can literally say this was Lauren's least favorite moment, was when old boy was standing in the window and just burst through it because it's like you never expected it to happen. But yeah, to me that was the most terrifying moment, just for the simple fact all hell was about to break loose.
I will say that it's how fast everything moves in this.
Yes, yes. All right, so let's switch over to 28 weeks later. Uh, Me and Will were talking about it, and well, Will, go ahead, say what you said first, and then see what Abby has to say about that.
Um, I like it as a standalone movie. I don't like it as a sequel to 28 Days Later. I don't think that it picks up on the exact same storyline. You have an entirely new cast. I mean, your main actor in the first one went on to be Oppenheimer. Like, I mean, he's an incredible actor, and that's kind of what I was missing. I was watching this like, is this the right movie? Um, so 28 weeks later was good for what it was. I still think it was good. I still think it kept on the same type of premise. I don't think you can compare the two and say, hey, this is a proper sequel to the first one.
I'll piggyback on that and I'll agree. I have a special place in my heart personally for 28 weeks later. I think the opening is
Yeah.
awesome. The opening is really good for any movie though, but like you said, standalone, it's awesome. As a sequel, it's not so great. It's not I always forget that Jeremy Renner's there.
Yeah.
That's a thing. He
Well, I
popped up.
think I think the biggest problem I have with 28 weeks later is just how possibly inconceivable it is. 28 days later, you can say, hey, this happened. 28 weeks later, there were so many holes in that story. Okay, first of all, it's been what, 28 weeks since this infection broke out. All of the infected are dead. There's nobody in here. We're going to start randomly moving people into Britain. We're going to move them back in to reclaim this area. And then what? Okay, so we have janitors that have full access. They run in. You're letting kids into Great
The
Britain
kids.
that
The
that you're
kids.
then that you're then on top of that not actually keeping track of. You're watching them leave the quarantine zone to go back into their house. You know when their mother comes back she's infected, and then you keep her alive. And even if you do keep her alive, you have the entire US military there. Like, you have a strong military presence and you don't have the room guarded. Like, I find it so hard to believe that any of that could have happened. I mean, it makes for a good movie, but it just doesn't, from like a realistic standpoint. I hate it.
No, I feel that honestly. I feel like if they would have had the mom without the mom getting found and brought back, if we would have been like, oh my God, you're keeping our mom in the basement this whole time doing tests on her, I would forgive that
That
more.
Oh, that I didn't even think about that. That would have been so much better,
Yeah, if we found out later
actually.
on you
Yeah.
were doing weird stuff, and they always do. Honestly, I really get. I'll give The Walking Dead this. And I enjoyed The Walking Dead on my second watch through, but it never went the route of Last of Us or this, or was like, we're gonna find a cure. No one gives a shit about a cure by the time everybody's dead and gone. Like, we're rebuilding now. Fuck the cure. Like,
Well,
I'm
yeah,
over
I
it.
I think that's what sets this franchise apart, though, because in The Walking Dead, The Last of Us, there is no hope, right?
Yeah,
There is nothing. In
well,
this
that's
one,
true.
the best thing you can hope for is that everybody that has the virus dies, and it just takes on the natural progression of just dying on its own.
I just feel like they jump on that after the mom stuff, and I would have liked it better, like I said, if it was
Yeah.
like long term. But I'm nitpicking here, and I think the scene where they're all locked into the basement is really scary. I think that's a really scary
Oh,
scene.
I didn't even think about how stupid that was. Okay,
Yeah,
we have
everybody get
infected
in and get
people in
locked
the
in.
building, and let's jam everybody into like a sardine can and just ring the dinner bell.
I
Okay.
swear to God, on numerous occasions in my life, even like when I was a stupid teenager at house parties and stuff, I would never get locked in nowhere. I'd be like, nope, I'll take my chances because all I can see is a flashlight moving around and we're all in there like piggies for the slaughter.
I
I'm
mean,
not,
even if you think about it, okay, so Andy gets infected and kills his wife, and then he spreads it to everybody. Like, the first people he spread it to were military personnel. None of them thought that all had weapons to stop this before it became a thing.
I'd argue it's because they're European.
They were American. Most of them were
Yeah, no, the
American.
American
Yeah,
ones,
yeah,
but I'm like, Andy, all nobody's doing anything. No, I'm just
yeah.
kidding. No, I'm just joking. But no, for real. I do appreciate I want to know this. Why did we skip? You know they're gonna want to do more if this does well, and I think this new one's gonna do well. Why didn't they do 28 months? Why aren't we doing that? I don't understand really. Why aren't
I
we running right over that to years? Because I feel like that's gonna be a problem for it because at least 28 weeks, the time frame is still fresh enough for you to pick up where you left off. I feel like months would be easier for them to do with it. I don't know. I don't know what's happening, honestly.
I
I'm
mean,
just confused.
you have to think about it. Like, I mean, it's been 4 years since COVID, and everybody's essentially said, hey, screw it. I mean, when you do the years aspect of it, I think that you can take that like sense of security that people have towards that disease, and if another outbreak happens, they won't be as prepared for it as maybe they would have been, two and a
Oh,
half
that's
years
fair.
later.
Their defenses come down because we think we're safe. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Uh, so this is not a popular opinion, and I've already brought it up to a couple of people. I actually think that 28 years later is going to be a prequel, and I'll go into detail about that for real quick
Might be right.
because the church windows that get burst through in the trailer are the same church windows that Jim walks into.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, but we hadn't gotten to the 28 years later. I
Oh,
watched that
sorry.
trailer probably 15, 20 times.
I was say sorry. Did I
Uh,
jump ahead in things? I just
No.
I don't know. It's such a cool. I really like. I like Contagion. I like 28 Days Later. I like the virus spreading movie, and I like you said, it's an apocalyptic thing. I do like it more that way. But do you guys think because of COVID and stuff, the zombie outbreak contagion like movie is going to make a huge comeback after this?
oh, 100%. Because see, here's
I
the
just been
thing.
trying to think of the youngins now because I was like 11 when this came out, the first one, and I'm like, oh yeah,
Oh
if you
shit, I'm old
raised
as
the
fuck.
pandemic, I'm just
uh,
saying, like,
I
it's
think I think because we've all lived through a pandemic, that this type of movie is going to hit different now, and I think now is actually the right time to kind of bring it to the forefront of, hey, this is how they would do it. How would we do it? So that I mean, just my opinion though. So, what you think? Well,
You think Danny Boyle was onto something? He was waiting for a global pandemic to happen so he could release a movie 20 years after the first one came out. Awesome.
I think
No,
it might
yeah,
have
yeah,
might have
yeah,
came back
yeah.
to the franchise because of it.
Um,
I think this might have put the nail in the okay, I'll come back to that franchise.
uh, yeah, because I mean, what they've been teasing trailers for 28 months later for years.
Right.
yeah,
Um, the fact that there was finally one that was on a verified YouTube account or something that had a countdown watching it makes me so happy. But I think that it's a good timing. I mean, honestly, I wish it would have happened 10 years ago, but
Um,
um it's still, I
I'm
think
glad
it's
that
gonna be
other
good.
people thought that because here's what happened with me. I went, there's not a 28 years later trailer. And I put my phone down. I was like, that's not real. I was like, this can't be real. And then somebody's like, did you see this? And I was like, oh, that's legit. I was like, no, I gotta wait and react to it. But like, I totally forgot to say this. It's funny that you guys bring up the church thing. I did not notice that. But what I did notice was in the very beginning, they're showing like the mom come into all the kids and they're watching Teletubbies. And I said in my reaction, I go, oh, so we're putting this at a very specific moment in time, like when that was popular and when that was popping. And so you might be onto something with it being a prequel because that would be what, early 2000s, late 90s would be the
yeah,
Teletubbies era, would be around that. And that would be, and then the first one takes place in 2002, right? It's in present
Yeah.
day for them.
yep.
Yeah.
So maybe it is a prequel, but I don't know. How do we feel about that? I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't know if that is necessarily the route that I would go with it, because even the infected between 28 days and weeks later did kind of evolve. So they were basically in 28 days later they were mindless creatures. And 28
Mhm.
weeks later, they start showing hints of having some intellectual capabilities. They're firebombing the city, and Andy's hiding in between buildings so he can get out. Um, I do think with that trailer that they are hinting to the fact that some of the infected people do have like a higher level of, like mental capacity. So I would like for it to be a trailer, but I think the Teletubbies thing is just, hey, we had reruns of
Or
Teletubbies
it's
on
a
TV.
flashback, or it's
Yeah,
just a flashback to the outbreak.
because I've read theories about, hey, it's in a dream state because they keep referring to somebody named Jim. On the side of the building, it says Jim. I
That's
carved into the infected that's hanging upside down. It says Jim. I legitimately watched this trailer 20 plus times.
Jim is
Like,
awesome though.
yeah,
He comes
yeah,
back. Jim's
yeah.
sick. Jim's cool.
No.
uh, on the side of the building. I mean, they kind of make it seem like that Jim might be the bad guy, or like maybe evolved
If Jim
infected.
is running a compound, even in an evil way, I'm Team Jim. I'm gonna say it now.
The only thing I'm actually worried about with 28 years later is the delivery, because I mean, you got a lot of different aspects. I mean, you're on an island. Yeah, I mean, they did the island thing in A Quiet Place Part Two, and it didn't work. So I'm kind of like, if you're on an island and there's no way to get off this island, you're kind of fucked anyway.
Till
You
they
know,
learn how to swim.
yeah,
I don't know. No, I'm really excited for this. I'm excited that Danny Boyle's back. That was a big thing for me when I was like, oh shit. Okay. We're all coming back. Like if we're all coming back, then I think it's gonna be good. I'm really excited for this franchise to be back and popping. I really am. I was glad to see how popular this trailer was.
yeah. Actually, Will, you said it earlier, and I kind of agree with you that this is going to be more of a proper sequel to 28 Days Later than what 28 Weeks Later was. I actually agree with that 100%. So,
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, now I'm curious how many views on YouTube does this
I
trailer
think it
have
was
right
at like
now on their
11
official
million when
thing?
I think it was 11 million last time when I was on it yesterday.
I
At
like how
least
they
the
have to put
trending
the
one.
yeah on Sony or on Sony Pictures it has 13 million right now.
damn.
So,
Uh,
um I think that especially with Danny Boyle coming back, I think that with them looking like they're keeping some of the original characters, I think that this is fast forwarding long past Jim, Selena, and Hannah being saved at the end of 28 Days Later.
I do hope that they explain why the girls aren't there, why the women ain't there. I
Maybe
do
they
hope they
are.
explain that. Huh?
What if they are?
It's a good point. You know, you
This is
never
a
know.
big property. This is a big franchise. I'm like, they might be really keeping some stuff under wraps. I loved because it was just like the originals trailer. It was very cryptic, very like imagery heavy without going like, oh, we kind of know what's happening. I don't really need to know everything that's happening. I just need to know, is this going to be awesome? And to me, I'm like, this gives vibes of 28 Days Later, and I'm here for it.
Yeah,
It is arguably probably the best like written and executed trailer I've seen for any movie in the last 10 years.
I
I
agree.
give, I'll give you that.
Yeah. Uh, I want to go back to 28 Days Later because there's one scene that is like absolutely to me probably again one of the best scenes is when they're running up the stairwell before they meet the dad and the daughter.
The
That
shopping carts?
yeah, that right there, I'm like these motherfuckers is quick.
That is scary. Honestly, the shopping cart angle of that always freaked me out because I was like, that would be a bitch and a half to climb for a regular person. I'm like, I don't know if I can, but yeah, I'm telling you, the rage out of all zombie infected things, this filmed them correctly. It's just scary. It's unnerving. I don't care how many times you see it, you're like, ugh, I do not like the way they can move.
Oh yeah. And Will, earlier you said it was filmed on iPhone, right? The whole thing.
28 years later is
Yeah.
being filmed 100% on an iPhone 15. I mean, to be
It's
honest, they
crazy.
attached a $10,000 lens to it, but they film the entire thing. There's a Reddit thread I can send you on it that goes like really deep into it that I was reading about earlier this week. But yeah, they filmed the whole thing on
That's
an iPhone.
crazy.
Oh yeah.
That's
I mean,
crazy. That's wild. But
oh yeah.
is this gonna be this isn't gonna be a found footage thing. It's just filmed with an iPhone camera.
I I believe so. I think they're trying to go for the same type of effect that they
Look,
had in 28 Days Later. Because if even if you notice it, you watch all of 28 Days Later, and the quality on it, even for 2002, is terrible. Right? I mean, but that's what they were going for because they were shooting with just like film or whatever, and then they
it's
went or they were
grainy
shooting, yeah,
and great.
and then at the very end scene, you can see when they made the switch into like the better camera quality. So I'm thinking that they're trying to go for a very similar feel that they had in the first one.
Okay,
Uh,
I can respect that. That's crazy to do, though. They better be getting banked from Apple for that.
Yeah.
Apple better be paying Danny Boyle up front. That's all I'm saying.
you know what? Just my opinion. What I think would be a good way to start this film would be right where part one left off, and the car crashes, and you just see them fly toward the camera, and then you see the infected do whatever they do, and Jim gets infected, and then all of a sudden he's like the one that has evolved and got all these other infected involved. That would be a good way to start the film.
Aren't they unfolding the sheet that says help at the end? Or is
Yeah.
that like an
No,
okay?
Well,
no,
no,
they are.
oh
Oh
yeah,
right, I
that's
get
right.
what you mean.
Yeah,
I
I've
get what you mean.
yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know if I'd be calling for help after my run-in with with the police, with the government right before, but no, I get it. Whatever.
all right. We got about
I
10 minutes
think that
left.
Cillian Murphy's coming back. Do you think he's going to come and do this? I
I
think
I
he
think
might.
so. I think so. Yeah.
It popped off your career. Like
Oh
other
yeah.
people can say they know him from Peaky Blinders. We know him from 28 Days Later. That was your big poppin'
I
first
know we
thing.
saw we saw so much of him in that movie too.
I was gonna say you hung dong. You had your wiener out, and it was a big thing. It was a thing.
Yep.
And honestly, I just want to praise the movie for this. Like I said, this is one of the best, easily one of the best horror films from the 2000s. Easily, it's great. But the pacing in this is so well done. Like there, you don't get bored watching this, even when it's not full of infected. I, it's extremely engaging. Even when I rewatch it.
Oh yeah. Uh, I do agree with both you guys that this definitely revolutionized this genre, whether it be zombies or infected. Uh, but I think that the only thing that actually in the 2000s that could possibly come close to this would be the remake of Dawn of the Dead. That's the only thing I would say, but I don't even think the remake of Dawn of the Dead.
I was gonna say I might give this the edge because it was an original concept.
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say that.
But I'm
It's these types of movies when they're made and they're made good. There's no denying that they're always going to be popular cult classic. I mean, there's a reason why the damn thing is out of print on Blu-ray and why it ain't sitting behind me because I keep my Blu-rays in protective cases.
I didn't realize it was out of print. I knew you couldn't stream it nowhere. I had two copies. One I already had loaned out, and then my friend called me yesterday. He's like, "Hey, do you have 28 days later?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Want me to bring it by? And then he's like, "It's out of print." I was like, "Out of print? It's not out of print." And then I look it up, and I'm like, "Oh my God, it is." And now I called my sister. I was like, "I need that copy back."
Yeah.
There's
uh,
weeks I knew you could stream because I rented it one night at the plant like a couple years ago, but I remember having difficulties even then finding 20
So
days that
I thought something crazy was happening. I did read online they took it off because whoever owned it lost the rights to it. So they're just trying to like reacquire who's gonna do it
oh yeah,
or
we're
who's
gonna get
gonna
it
own it.
back.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
just like, it was already, I would say over the last like year, the reason I had dug them out was because this past Halloween, I was like, oh yeah, I was like, Mom, you never watched 28 Days Later. I was like, Tommy Shelby's in it. And I couldn't find it nowhere. And I was like, oh, I'll dig it out of storage. So I dug them out, but there was a time further back too where I was struggling finding just to throw it on. And I'm like, that's weird. But no, that
uh,
it all makes sense. We'll get it back. It'll be fine. But I'm
uh,
holding on to those copies until it is.
actually, so 28 days later is going to be streaming
Is it coming?
in January. They're
Oh, when is this
just
coming out? When's the new one coming out?
June
28 years.
20th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
June 20th.
Uh, which
I've already told you, Josh, that I will pay a ridiculous amount of money to rent out a theater and watch that even one day before everybody else.
oh yeah. No, so they're gonna release it on Thursday, and the way things are working, we might be able to see it on Wednesday. So
I will take that whole week off just to get ready for it.
I'm surprised it's taken them this long to come back to the franchise. This is a huge franchise. People love
Yeah.
this. We love this.
So, Cillian Murphy, when he was filming Peaky Blinders, they asked him would he be willing to return? And this was early on in during like the first or second season of Peaky Blinders. And at first he said no because he felt comfortable with the way the movie ended. But then he was like, well, now that it's starting to gain more traction and everything, he's like, let's face it, he wanted to come back because it is the one that started him, and the royalties alone is going to be worth way more than what he would ever make on Peaky Blinders.
Well, Dan, it's like I said, this is your first big popping thing. And if you found out Danny Boyle was coming back and everything, you'd be like, I'm gonna look out for my buddy. But that's what I mean. What, 20 years later, somebody's like, hey, you're gonna do that 28 years later if it happens? That must be a good feeling to go like, yeah. Like if somebody asked him about Batman, I'm sure he'd be like, well, if Christopher Nolan hit me up, I might go do it.
Yeah. So we got about 4 minutes left. Final thoughts. We'll start with Will. Final thoughts on the whole franchise so far, and where would you put them on your top five?
Um, 28 weeks later wouldn't touch my top five,
All
but
right,
28 days later is top three for sure.
top three.
Like, oh yeah,
All right,
100%.
Abby.
Okay, there are some 28 days for sure. Is in like probably my top five favorite movies from the 2000s, easily top five horror films of all time. 28 weeks though, it's not up there. But like I said, there's a few scenes in it that I still bring up regularly, especially that opening. The opening is great. The opening is
Yes.
scary. It's fast. It's shot well. It's creepy. It gets your heart go. It sets up all the shit you're gonna see really well. And I will always hype it. The music, all of that, the editing, all of it is very good. So things like that I will hype up. So there's pieces of weeks that I go, this might be in my top whatever if you bring up certain things, but it's definitely not high up. I don't have, if I had to pick one to go to a desert island with, I'm not going to pick weeks.
uh, what I liked about the beginning of Weeks was just the downhill cameras that they showed. That was awesome. Uh, I did
Yeah,
not like the guys. He would rather flight than fight. I mean, that's your wife. I mean, what are you
a
doing?
bitch. What a
Uh,
bitch. But
yeah.
let me say this really quick. I'm so sorry, Josh, to cut you off. But this was at a time, everybody, before drone shots were so easily accessible. Like, this was cool shit to see.
Oh yeah. Uh, 28 days. Like I said, is in my Hall of Fame. 28 weeks doesn't even touch my top 30. So, and that's saying a lot because there's some shit movies on my top 30. All right. So with 2 minutes left, I'm gonna say first I'd like to thank Will for coming on. Thank you. And you're always more than welcome to come on anytime. I'm pretty sure when 28 years later comes on, we'll definitely be getting on camera again. Yeah.
I'll be here.
All right. And Abby, this is Abby's triumphant return back to YouTube after taking a little
2 months
sabbatical.
off, 2 months of doing nothing. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I'm down to talk more 28 days later if you guys want to tomorrow.
uh, I'm
Or whatever day
yeah.
this weekend. I'm actually free this weekend. And I'm really
Oh,
geeked for this. And I like hearing people that really care about it talk about it.
oh yeah. Uh, I have to talk to Lauren. She's my planner. So
Of course.
yeah. But other than that, you know, I'd like to thank again both you guys for coming on. You guys, Abby, you always got a home here. Will, you're
Thanks.
always more than welcome. Got a home. You're part of the NC-17 family now, which is weird to say because of everything else outside of NC-17. But yeah, it's been a great episode, and I'm not gonna say stay NC-17 today. I'm for the first time. Will, you can close out the show.
Stay NC-17.
Yep. Say whatever you want to say.
All right. Well, thank you. I love talking about these movies, and it's a pleasure being here.
All right. Until next time, stay NC-17.